Now it's time for compositing. And I select a few frames to have animation for the vortex. And now what I have here, we can see that I render out separately this fire vortex and the background, sorry, not the background, the bottom and the sparks. You can see how it's looking. So in sparks part, I forget to add the core vortex, this vortex as a matte object. So I did it and render out with the matte object because they should fly just on the front of this. And I render out 3 different types of the vortex. You can see there's a lot of different tests. So this vortex is that what we had in the lesson, that what we create. And I use a switch just to switch between those. And this vortex, I create fire with the less turbulence. So the core, like this fire, you can see that is more flat. The smoke had the same turbulence 100, but the flame has a turbulence like 5. So our flame is more like linear without this turbulence. But I don't really like this. Why I did this render? Because in references, if you saw the fire vortex photo image, it has like a very smooth structure. There's not too many turbulences. It looks like a tube with some bending. So it's more looking like here, just except of the big amount of smoke, which I just add here. We can use justify without the smoke. And this render with the smoke and the fire has a huge turbulence. And this, I really don't like this render, but is with even bigger turbulence for the smoke. It's a little bit different, but I really don't like it. So it's just one frame, I guess. I render out and say that, okay, I like this case. So I have 2 options, this vertex or this. Now let's see what do we have. Let's switch to this version. So what I did, I added transformation to place this main vortex in a place I need to. Now let me just turn off all those guys. And yeah, that's what we have. So basically this is our background and this is our vortex, main vortex. And make a transformation, then add a bit grade. As you can see, I have in the top of vortex very bright fire, and using just a simple grade with the white point setup and a little bit of gain, I decrease this brightness because I want to see the texture from this fire. So there is a little bit less smoke and fire looks a little bit more brighter. Okay, so I just apply a mask to select this upper area. And then I think what I did here is, I guess, I take a smoke and I make it over again. So I take the sunlight direct pass. So you can see it's just add a tiny bright area from the left. Then I add my bottom render, I guess. No, it's just a mask. And now we should have sparks. Here they look like, I try to add a little bit of motion blur. Well, I render out those as lines, so we can add a motion blur to create a little bit more correct effect. I disable this by default. And then I add the bottom area. So I color correct those guys, make transformation and reformat. So now this vortex looks like here, and transform it in HD format. For my fire, I use a motion blur, just a motion blur without any kind of color correction. Okay, you can see that our motion blur is not too much. It's not any too much. Well, not without any color correction. I did some. With the grade, I decrease the white point, increase actually white point, and with the color correction, I decrease saturation because it's too red. Maybe just a bit more, and with some contrast to make brighter areas even more brighter. So we fill this up, and then I add color correcting for my background. So I create a grade node to make a darker background, like a night, and with the color correction make a smaller saturation with a little bit bigger contrast areas. Then I use the mask for creating glow around the fire, and create a mask to create lighting from this vortex to the ground. I use the keyer to grab information from a background and create like this vortex light, create a light on those planes. And then another glow, which I get from the vortex. So I select two glow, first is with the size of 100 and default brightness. Another one is size 500 and merge them together, and this is how it's looking. The glow on the background. So I'm not adding a glow on the on this vortex over. I added the background and then vortex to this background. So we can try to use like this option with some screen, I guess. All right, but like here, and I have a mask, so it doesn't create very good proper result. But anyway, we can use this as mask as an alpha channel, so we can do like this, but definitely not what I want to. So we can play with that, or we can just add this like here, you know, with some transparency to fill with some glowing. But anyway, that's what we had, and it's looking pretty good. The sparks are moving, this fire. I like this tube even more than the bottom part, because the bottom part has just a fire, and here we have a nice transition between the fire and smoke. It's looking pretty interesting. So again, you can choose how many turbulence you will add to your vortex and create more noisy result, more turbulent result, or more smooth result just for the fire. I like this option too, so it's looking pretty interesting. I haven't rendered all 100 frames for this too. So we still have some turbulence, and you can see how it's rising up and create nice vortexes here. It creates nice details, but it's more like more linear, but it's still looking pretty good. And I just, for the test, render my tornado with the closer camera, and you can see how many details we have there. So there's a lot of, you know, fire lines swirling around. It's pretty good. It's looking pretty interesting. You know, we can create even better result with some color correction. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Create some mystic reddish. Something like that. Alright guys, so that's what I want to show you. So now we have all those three different types of vortexes. The first one we create with this thing, and I want to remove the old debris to use a new one. So here we go. Yeah, that's debris a little better. And I add some grungy effect here. So make it more contrast, looking better. And the wide one, just with some, you know, very huge, large scale tornadoes. And the last one is the fire. I hope soon I will create a few different examples with destruction elements, where tornado can smash some buildings or some different objects. And maybe I try to create tornado which is beginning from the clouds, somewhere from this area. Well, maybe with another image. We should create clouds and create simulation where how this tornado can be created from the beginning. In fact, I have like an animation in this case. We're starting just with some fire there. You can see it is in the beginning. And it's rising up and bigger. Because of scaling, my Houdini text is going outside of the frame. So now like it, how it's looking. So somewhere beginning from frame 50, when my fire is going to the upper side of the frame, I begin my animation. So see you in next lessons. I hope you liked it and information will be helpful for you. See you next time.